Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 164. I'm pretty sure.
I really want to talk about this too, but it's a shame that we can't episode.
We're not going to. I would
anyway,
love to. Hi. It's a great way to start it off, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it's 164.
Fuck it, we ball, right?
Fuck it, we ball. We are operating without show notes. I'm operating without sleep. I am at the mercy of the 250 milligrams of caffeine I threw into my system. And that's how we're going to get through today. I am Logan. I am your host. And with me, as always, is the recently checked in after being checked out, Darick Oswald. Darick actually didn't just read about Flesh and Blood this weekend. He went and played Flesh and Blood.
You know what? I forgot where you were going with that joke because I was like, no, I was literally just reading about Flesh and Blood.
Okay, fair. But things that we probably shouldn't talk about on the show, but we'll talk about at some other point in time once that's actually out there.
Stuff was released and then redacted, so when it's re-released, I can't wait to talk about it.
Right, that'd be great, because it's very interesting. So it might be an after dark conversation, you never know.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, so Darick and I were both in Prague this past weekend. I got back from Prague 4 hours ago, so I can't sleep on airplanes. I don't know if you knew that about me. So, couple of quick hitters here. I always make sure I have at least a 2 hour layover whenever I'm traveling internationally at my destinations because of when bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was stuck on the tarmac in Paris on the plane for an hour because of the fog that you also had experienced.
It hit Paris?
Yeah, it hit Paris. And it turns out that the one in Paris was freezing fog. So they had to defrost fog the engines. And then we had to sit there and wait in line because, every plane was backed up then. And only by the grace of Global Entry did I actually make it on my flight by actual 3 minutes. I was 3 minutes from the boarding door closing by the time I got to my gate. But like I said, only by the grace of Global Entry did I actually make the flight. But as I sat there on the tarmac in Paris, I did Google what asylum looked like in France, and it turns out I couldn't claim it. So, but I did look because I didn't want to come back here. I had a blast in Prague. There are probably too many shout outs to make sure I got everybody, but for the event itself, obviously a shout out to the coverage team, Brian and Erica and Scott and our esteemed coverage producer, Sam O'Byrne, all did a tremendous job. Anybody that watched coverage was kind of glued to it. It seemed like they were, I went back and watched a very small amount of it before we went on here, but listening to Brian be able to talk through, the decisions and game points when he designed the fucking thing is actually really illuminating. Congrats to Simon Nielsen on winning the calling, and I believe our intrepid hero Michael Fung was the winner of the Battle Hardened. Sorry, was Tommaso Vecito, is who with Arachne is who won the Battle Hardened. So congratulations to both of them. It was I really already enjoy the Hunted Limited, and I haven't got to draft it yet. And I enjoy draft far more than I enjoy sealed in every set so far of Flesh and Blood, and I think every set of any card game in general. So I'll get a chance to draft it this weekend. We'll probably, because we usually take our prize packs and stuff like that from pre-release events, and then we draft them up to kind of get a feel for it before we head out, in this case, to Memphis next weekend for the double calling there. So let's kind of dive in a bit. So we established a couple of really interesting things about this set, mainly that I'm fucking stupid. And as Darick is sitting there, it helps me take my sealed pool from the end, like one of the promo events, and dissects it with me and realizes it's a really good Arachne pool. And so then I proceed to enter into my first round with Arachne after we rebuilt the pool, and immediately punt like 3 turns in a row, just immediately. And Darick is sitting there audibly sighing in my ear behind me. I can just like, the disappointment is actually radiating.
Yeah, and I can't say I didn't say a word till after the match. I would never interfere with an ongoing match, but boy, did I have notes when he finished.
They were long and they were aggressive. Because, and then I again I won that one by the grace of the dice, and went into my next round with and then proceeded to punt yet again, because reading is fun and fundamental, and when you have 7 hero cards to read, it realizing which one does what is kind of important.
And that's not even counting like weapons that you equip that you don't even have at the
start of
the game. Or
it's a lot.
You did start to get better. If you're listening, you're wondering like what some of the mistakes were. A lot of it was just forgetting which mode the hero was on. So like I was watching Logan, and he would, when his opponent was marked and he was on like Web of Deceit, for example, he would not give the +1 and like on hit go again, essentially, right? Or when he was not on Web of Deceit, but he was swinging with the starting dagger, the dagger text is what gives that the +1 when your opponent is marked. So there was one time where he swung and presented it as 1 instead of 2 because his opponent was marked, but he's like, well, I'm not on Web of Deceit, but that's on the dagger itself. And I had to clarify that for quite a few people like at the event, like, no, it's on the dagger text if you look. But then there's other parts as well, right? Like when you're on one of the other forms, you don't have the +1 and go again, right? Now you get the other cool abilities. So there's that. And then like one of the times he basically lost out on a lot of damage because he was on the 3rd form, which is the Orb Weaver, and he equipped the graphing calculator, aka the graphene calicerae, whatever. But when he attacked with it, I watched him pay for it, and that meant not paying for another like attack reaction in his hand, which also, like, I believe that one would have gave go again and extended for like one other attack as well, or something.
Actually, a poison dagger is what was the extra resource I needed, was to be able to play poison dagger and attack.
Right, that's what it was.
Which changes the math of the game completely.
Changes the math, yeah, completely. But he, again, didn't see that the text was not just like, oh, you got the +3 and equipped it. It's also that dagger swings for free on that turn, right? So, like, I mean, we all know when you're playing a tight game how much a difference a single resource makes. And so that was a pretty big one. So, listen, like, I was giving him a hard time because it's Logan and I love him. But these are the sorts of things like I would expect anybody to struggle with if it's, it's a brand new set. Nobody had even seen it all until, that day. Because this was like at the end of day 1 when we were doing this, right? This wasn't even like calling where you've had a night to sleep on it. So brand new set, lots of stuff. Logan obviously doesn't play nearly as much Assassin as I do. So on top of trying to essentially learn 7 new heroes and a bunch of new weapons, he's also kind of learning a whole new class and what they want to do. So
I think over the course of, because I did end up playing Arachne in a full box sealed, which was don't do that. If you're playing, don't play full box sealeds in the Hunted, because it's all Syndra all the time, and it's just a fucking blitz deck. And anything else seems like a mistake. But we did a full box team sealed, and that was a little bit better. And I played the Arachne seat, and I died to the triple. I had my opponent at 1, and I had double Razor's Edge, and I was at 3, and I'm like, should be able to punch through the 1 here. Feel really good about it. I go and then Razor's Edge, and then he triple defense reacts, lose 1 life on me. Huh. Triple shunted, huh? Well, shit. So this is anybody that knows me in real life and has played games with me of like WTR Limited knows I love getting killed by Steelblade Shunt. Like, it is one of my favorite things to do is to die to Shunt, or when I brought up die, also, you died a lot to Reckless Swing. I was talking to Brian, and Brian looked at me and said, that one is probably a skill gap. Have you considered that might be a skill gap? And I'm like, thanks. That was sure. It probably is. But this, to be fair, it is, I had walked up to Brian to say hello, but actually the first words that came out of my mouth were, fuck you for putting Sigil of Solace in this set. To which Brian said, hello to you too. Good to see you. It's like, okay, fine. But getting blasted by Sigil 2 rounds in a row, I was just like, what the shit? But it's short printed, and I still got to see it 2 rounds in a row.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating set. I ended up playing Fang in the calling. Was definitely a Fang pile. The matches were all vitally, like, cripplingly close. And I won my first 2. Then after winning round 1 or 2, Az showed up for the 24 hours of Az. And so I promised him that once I hit 2 losses, I was on Pilsners. Like, the calling was dead to me. And the fact that there was a vendor directly outside of the hall selling beers meant that that's what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And once I hit that second loss, yep, we locked in.
Yeah, you tanked it, and then you went in the tank.
I tank and sink, baby. And yeah, there's a great picture on Az's Blue Sky of me sitting on a park bench, and I'm literally surrounded by 5 beers at that point in time. Made a lot of new friends. So if any of my new friends are listening, hello. Big shout out to Raziel's Ghost, because on one of I think it was on Friday, I went to the little food stand outside, which was fantastic, by the way, and ordered food, and then none of my cards would work, so I had to borrow crowns from him because I didn't have any on me, and then pay him back the next day, and that was very nice of him. Yes, I still carried I brought some crowns home. My wife loves foreign currency. I just
when I did my final exchange and I didn't have much left over, I requested that anything that would come back as like coins to just give that back to me, because I wanted to bring it back for the boys. So
yeah, I wound up in the Prague airport buying some Czech chocolates for my wife, because I thought that she'd like them. I used my leftover crowns, or a lot of my leftover crowns, for that, and then just brought some souvenir money that totaled less than $5 home, because like I said, she enjoys foreign currency a ton. So sure, did that. So by the way, I love Prague. Big fan of Prague. We can do Prague whenever. Prague's great. And
that's assuming that they let me back.
I think that you're fine. I may have caused an international incident, but I don't know for sure because I don't remember a lot. However, Az's GoPro footage is a little damning. Not too bad, though. It was worse in Hartford. That's for sure.
I did get a giggle, so I'll save some of it for like after dark. But one of my favorite moments from the 24 hours of Az was Logan was, I don't know, like 19 beers deep or something.
That was the
like
final number.
and we decided that we're going to go get pizza because as
walk around Old Town. He's catatonic.
He's looking like he definitely needs something that, like, greasy or something to help him out. He was fading fast. So we go to a pizza place, which, by the way, the pizza was actually fantastic.
Really good.
It was really good, especially given how, like, late it was at night and so forth. But we're in there purchasing the pizza, and Logan proceeds, like, to go in and get more pizza with me because I was going in for a second slice. I just got one to start, but I was like, man, that was really good. I'm going to go back in and get some. So Logan goes in with me, and he sticks out his plate for them to put the second slice on. And the guy's like, are you sure? And he goes, I'm drunk. I'm not wasteful. And then immediately after saying that, proceeds to spill the poor gentleman's tips all over the floor.
Did.
I mean, just everywhere. Like, I'm drunk. I'm not wasteful. And then Sonic lost his rings. They was just like,
yep, sure did. That was one for the ages. There's GoPro footage of me saying, Charmer, I want to fucking kill you right now. And there's also, like, so there we do the pizza place. I'm like, I also just need, like, caffeine in me in order to get back to civilization. Now, for anybody that knows what this is like, Old Town Prague actually kind of reminds me of the French Quarter in New Orleans. It's very similar, lots of bars, very old, cobblestoney. Buildings are kind of stacked on top of each other. The streets aren't really drivable.
If you're a Flesh and Blood player that went to Barcelona, it's also very similar to the Gothic Quarter that was in Barcelona.
But it was really cool, like, just super sweet. And I remember going across the street from the pizza place to this, like, I needed to take a piss. And so I go across, and then I felt guilty taking a piss somewhere and not buying something, but I also wanted caffeine. So I'm like, how much? Just give me a Coke Zero. And she's like, said something in crowns. I'm like, here, is it this many? And just took all the change on my pocket. And she, like, went and she's like, it's this many. And, like, there's a bunch left. I'm like, so keep it, because I don't want to bother, and just grab the soda and leave. But it was like 4 or 5 times what the soda cost, because I couldn't be bothered at that point. It was, so shout outs for, I want to give specific shout outs to Summer Giles and Ian Holland for showing us a good time, finding the bar that we went to, being my partners in Team Sealed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Made it even more fun hanging out and having a blast. And obviously a big thank you to Az, because the 24 hours of Az was really fun. Like, it might have killed me or almost killed me, but it was fun. And I didn't die. So here we are. My favorite comment on the weekend actually was when Ian walked up to me. He's like, so Charmer told me that he was utterly shit-faced last night. I'm like, yep. He's like, but he was acting like a normal dude. I'm like, yep. That's Charmer shit-faced. I'm like, yes.
Yep.
What's he like when he's sober? I'm like, an unbearable ass.
Pretty much insufferable.
Oh. All right. So he's just a regular person when he's hammered. Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's the generations of alcoholics before me.
Yeah.
I return to my lineage.
Yeah. Did God's work. But Indigo and Ryan and anybody else that was out with us that night, it was a blast. Do it again sometime. Maybe do it less, potentially. But when the beers are $2, like, okay. The last night in Prague for Darick, we go out to dinner. Darick gets a beer. I order water. His beer was 10 crowns less than my water. Beer costs less than water in Prague. So, I mean, culturally, that tracks.
Yeah. That is an accurate description. Now, I want to do my own shout out. Not that you didn't do a a fantastic job, but I also have some additionals. I just wanted to say, as always, it was great to see Jacob and Sam. It was wonderful to talk to Brian. I'm glad I got to thank him in person for my Oops All Arachne set. I had an absolute wonderful time at the event. I want to thank Trevor for picking the location.
Big shout out to Trevor on that one. And he really wanted to come to Prague.
I want to thank Christoph for trading me the second promo tarantula toxin. I want to thank Russell for giving me the tips about potentially how to move to Denmark, but also for approaching me and saying, hey, I loved your Runeterra stuff, because nobody ever recognizes me for that, especially because usually when I'm at an event, everyone remembers Majin Bay. But so that was nice. But lastly, certainly not least though, I want to pledge an oath of fealty, pun incredibly intended, to one Mr. Brandon, aka Huckler, in the Discord, because that fine human being, that specimen, that mensch, was kind enough to get me an Arachne Huntsman Marvel. And when I say get me, I mean he pulled the second one, and so Logan brought me over, and I was going to, like, I was waiting for him to stop talking for me to be like, okay, what do you want for it? And then he just went, here, and then he gave it to me. And I still even now feel weird about it, so thank you. It was incredibly appreciated. Was not expected. I'm also incredibly envious of your total haul, because I do know that you got a lot more trading done that weekend, and I am going to have to continue getting the ones that I'm obviously still missing. And even more so now, I definitely need to farm like gem packs and whatever, because I need the Uzuri Marvel that was recently revealed as well.
Yeah. That was when they were doing the gem pack openings on stream, they obviously hit the Marvel, and yeah, it turns out that Uzuri Switchblade is the Marvel in the gem packs, which is sweet. Like, let's be real here. That's fucking great. It fits thematically. Plus, it's one of the heroes that didn't have a Marvel yet. So what a great idea. There are a couple of cards I wanted to touch on that we hadn't seen yet, that we saw first in the that we saw in the calling, or saw in the world premiere. The first one is actually the fact that they did give us Chaos Gem, so we are just playing Sonic the Hedgehog now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's wonderful. Big fan. The gem is Schism of Chaos, so it's just it's a chaos resource gem, so it's a chaos gem. And then it's when it's pitched, it's a blue pitch. When it's pitched, each hero shuffles, then puts the top card of their deck face down in their arsenal. Okay. A couple now there are a couple of cards that made me go, oh, that's a fucked up card.
Yeah, I feel like I'm still seeing them. Like, I was at the event and thought I'd seen everything, and legit when I was like in the Uber driving to the airport, and I'm just like, oh, I'll catch up on stuff. Like, I was still seeing new things.
So first off, like, we're gonna talk about the chest piece that's out there. I'm trying to find the name of it, because there's an easy way for me to do this. I'm just stupid.
Are you talking about the one that I opened and extended cold foil that made me so happy?
That made you tight in the pants.
It really did, because somebody across from me opened just a rainbow foil legendary, and so I just assumed that the box was a wash at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was proven wrong. It is called the it was an assassin ninja,
a blood
card.
Splattered vest.
So
it's blood splattered vest. That's it.
Yeah. I kept thinking it was blood stained, and when I was searching, it wasn't coming up, and I was thinking of that because of the tokens, but it's blood splattered. You are correct.
Yep. So blood splattered vest, obviously insane art because Jessica is great. It is whenever a dagger you control hits, you may gain a resource and put a stain counter on this. When there are 3 or more stain counters on it, destroy it. So when you're flicking your daggers, you can just generate resources as you need to throughout the turns. No fucking notes. That's really good.
And you don't, so obviously the comparison with this is going to be Tunic, right? Mm-hmm. So here, I've been thinking a lot about this because I keep going back and forth on like which assassins or ninjas want to run this, because it is assassin slash ninja. Sorry, my brain is going faster than my mouth at the moment. And it has blade break, right? Just like Tunic. So the question then becomes, are you going to want an on-demand resource for anything, right? Because obviously this requires the dagger to hit. Now, Flick Knives makes that easier. There are other effects in this set as well that can mimic this. There's also even things that won't consume your dagger, like, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about it in just a bit, but Pain in the Backside is a card that I'm falling in love with. That's
one of the next ones.
Yeah. So, like, that is giving us a lot of ways to trigger this, but obviously, just like, for example, if you are playing a fatigue version of Arachne Huntsman, I think that version will still prefer Tunic because at least when I run the fatigue version, I also run Oasis Respite, right? So having Tunic up to be able to pay for Respite for free, not require any sort of on-hit or whatever, that's different. But your proactive or your more aggressive assassins will be fine with the vest. And if you're really aggressive and proactive, the vest ends up being, I think, a net positive specifically because you don't have to wait for the charge up turns, right? So if you're in a situation where you're playing like Slip Through the Cracks, for example, your opponent goes first for turn 0 and now you're set up, you can just go, right? And like, yeah, you might lose this after 3 activations, but you'll get 3 in the time somebody else just charged up their Tunic, right? That's a pretty big deal when you want to be the beatdown, when you want to be the aggressor. So I do think that there are potential use cases for both, but this is really good for your aggressive users. Now, the last bit, and I know I made Logan groan over the weekend when I said this, but I hope that we get other pieces of equipment that utilize stain counters for various class like themed things. And then I hope at some point, whether it's like a non-attack action or an attack action that does it or whatever, I want a card that basically lets you wash your clothes and then you can remove the stain counters.
It's still so fucking dumb.
Like we got wax on, man. We got wax off, right? And Ninja,
yeah,
this
so
is an assassin.
We need
card.
laundromat. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Honestly, hear me out. There needs to be something where you, as an assassin, you can pay silver, and for each silver you pay, you can remove a stain counter, and we'll call the card money laundering.
I hate it so much, but it's exactly the type of thing LSS would print.
That's why you hate it, because
that's
I'm
why
right.
I hate it.
That's genius.
Okay, couple more here. Pain in the Backside is one of them because 1, it is you, and 2, it's just good. It's just a 0 for 3 go again. Assassin Ninja. When this hits a hero, target dagger you control deals 1 damage to them. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger is hit. You don't destroy the dagger.
Yeah, they're nowhere on there to say destroy the dagger. Yeah, so this is a lot of people like to make the jokes. Ninjas are all head jabs, and technically this is a head jab. But oh boy, the on hit on this is a lot more than a head jab.
The text is real good.
And for Assassin in particular, where your daggers all have like potentially relevant on hits, this is very good. Like obviously, yeah, the stuff that marks your opponent jumps out just because that's the new thing for the set. But even when you go back to the old ones, right? Like a Spider's Bite, a Nerve Scalpel, even an Orbido class, depending on your matchups, to make the future blocking like that much more awkward is a pretty big deal. So I also personally I've seen a lot of cards from this set, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think we might be in a world where there is a non-traditional version of Ira that ends up being really good.
It's already out there.
And this is one of those cards where I'm like, man, if you just, if this is your second, you get that +1, like now this is a 0 for 5 essentially, like that they have to cover.
And there's a Zephyr Needle up sticks and run version of Ira out there already that people are working with.
I am not surprised, because when I was thinking it through, I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff that has like decent on hits, but they were reasonable, like this, where the breakpoints, whatever. But then I was like, oh, but Ira makes those breakpoints a lot juicier.
Lot juicier. Next one that I wanted to talk about was just called Throw Dagger. It's just this little innocuous card that is a 0 cost blue pitch, 3 block, ninja assassin attack reaction. And all it does is flick a dagger. That's all it does. But it has staple to flicking the dagger. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger is hit, and you draw a card.
Yeah.
Just the fuck? Like, what the shit? That one is as a blue block 3 with like that kind of utility.
A blue block 3 that costs 0. So again, speaking of Ira and, yes, Zephyr Needle, but also Kodachis could still be in the mix there. So it turns those on. Like, this checks all the boxes for just like an easy floor utility blue.
It's a double flick turn blue that also can just keep the string going too.
Could be even more than a double flick turn.
Well, yeah, you have other ways of doing this shit. Like it's really absurd in the Poison Blade turns, which fuck that card too. Again, a lot of this is Assassin Ninja. Like the Warrior stuff is pretty straightforward. But the Assassin Ninja stuff is where the tricksy, time to do math stuff comes in. So Poison Blade is a simple, whenever a dagger you own hits a hero this combat chain, they lose a life. And it's a 1-for-3 with go again, attack action.
Yeah, now this is important because it just requires you to have played the card, right? Like, it doesn't need to hit to turn on the additional threat of the dagger. In fact, in many ways, you almost kind of want them to like throw the card in front of this because it doesn't have an on hit, and so that just frees up like even more resources for you to push it through. But yeah, Poison Blade seems silly. I've seen a lot of people talking about toxicity, and for good reason as well, because that is a card that I think it's going to be boom or bust. But when you consider cards like Pain in the Backside, I think we could have like a real problem. So when you consider that toxicity adds the text to the dagger, right? So if you're somebody who's not familiar with what I'm referencing, toxicity, the red version makes the next attack have, an on hit of your opponent loses 5 life. But it adds that text like to the attack, and it's attack, not attack action card. So you can play toxicity and then you can swing with a dagger. And so they basically have to block that or they're going to take a ton. But then after that, you can play Pain in the Backside. And now they have to block that because otherwise that's going to just fling the dagger that had toxicity on it and not destroy it. And then through all of this, you still have like flick knives on that dagger to potentially just say like, oh, by the way, take 6, Or
you have throw dagger. Just go yeet. Like, yeah. And I'll draw a card. What you're gasping?
I'm wondering if, I can't wait till we have Josh Scott on
next week.
I'm wondering if how much last known information matters for multiple throw triggers. Could you play like 3 throw daggers on a dagger and have them all work?
No, because it destroys the dagger. So the dagger is still the chain. The chain link is still a dagger, but the dagger is not there. So there's an object issue. I see what you're thinking, and the answer is no. But Josh will confirm with us when he's on next week.
Yeah.
Going to talk about a couple of generics really quick.
No, we can't. We haven't even talked about the most important dagger.
Which one?
Kiss of Death.
You talking about KOD? Which again, I am going to make a supercut or have.
Oh yeah, that was another thing. That was another one of those things where I was watching you play and I was like, "Hey, Logan."
Yeah, right. Fuck me. This one we talked about. This one we talked about on the show already, but we will revisit it because Darick loves this card.
Well, and because now we like have reps with it, and because even you like forgot. Like I think it's important to hammer it home.
Yeah, because it's also works with Poison Blade, and yeah. Any rate. So Kiss of Death is a 0 for 3 go again. That is, 0 for 3 stealth.
Right.
That on hit lose a life, but it's a dagger attack. So it's a dagger, but it's not a weapon. But it's a dagger. So you can flick it. You can do shit that pumps a dagger. You can do whatever you want with the fucking thing. And it is marvelously good. I already have a playset, and I'm very happy about that. But because I think that card is very, very good. And also the design space. I know we talked about this a little bit. The design space on that one is really, really insane. I love that about it.
So the reason I wanted to mention it, because again, I saw a lot of people at the event, like even with seeing the text and knowing what the card did, they would just forget simple things, right? So because it's a dagger, you can use it for all things that you could use a dagger. Now, everyone immediately thinks of the flick use because it's incredibly important because you're essentially flicking for 2 with it because of the hit, lose a life. But the number of people that I got with like up sticks and run into that card because it
pumps it.
Right. They're not thinking of it as a dagger. And like I would even say like, okay, this is coming for 8 now after the up sticks plus, because the red one is +4, and then I did something else that buffed it, but I was like throwing 1 for 8 at somebody. Oh, it was they were marked and I was on the
right.
web
You're
at
on
the time, right? So I was like,
yep.
So this is coming for 8 and an on hit of 1, and then
go
like,
again.
What do you mean?
And
what
lose
do you mean
a life?
8? And I was like, yeah, and if it hits it, like, you know, it gets go again and you lose a life or whatever. And then they were like, oh, that, like, oh no, I guess it does work that way, blah blah blah. And so because they were marked, like they didn't want to deal with the go again stuff, so they threw 9 block in front of it. I was like, okay, well then I'll play to the point. And again, they were marked, so that's a +4 for 0 because it was another red one. And they were like, no, that's you know, for daggers, it says the target dagger attack. And I was like, yeah, it's a dagger.
It's a dagger.
Like, oh, so you can do some insane things with that. And then again, even further, like when you start talking about the toxicity stuff, toxicity onto Kiss of Death, and then flinging that is a ton of damage. I never got to do it this weekend, but I know one of the other cards that was revealed over the weekend, Savor Bloodshed.
That was going to bring that up next. Goon Bait is really good.
Yeah, that card is obviously really good, and what do you know, it works with daggers specifically. So that's the other reason I wanted to revisit. I want
to go ahead and read that one for people because we haven't talked about it yet. That one is a 0 cost Assassin Warrior action. Your next dagger attack this turn gets +4. The next time you hit a marked hero with a dagger this turn, draw a card. Sure. That's fair and balanced. That's Fox News.
Yeah. So if you're keeping score at home, if your opponent is marked, you can swing, play Savor Bloodshed, swing with a lonely dagger, even if it's just a 1 attack, right? Like you're swinging for 5 with your dagger. You're probably going to block that out. But now if you flick that with the throw, the blue block 3, right? You're going to deal your damage and you're going to draw 2 cards. And keep going.
And keep going. Yeah. It's a thing of beauty. I got 2 majestics or 2 generics I want to talk about. They are both majestics. The first one is the least offensive one, which is Dual Threat, which is a yellow 0 cost generic action, blocks 3. It's very, very simple. It's elegant. It's if you've attacked with a weapon this turn, the next attack action card you play this turn gets +3. If you attacked with an attack action card this turn, your next weapon attack this turn gets +3. So it's just a casual 0 for 6.
Just a casual. That also is a yellow.
That's a yellow that blocks 3.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Casual.
Just casual. Seems fine.
And there's definitely no heroes that can make use of this.
Can abuse that? No, absolutely not. No.
That would want to run it anyway, you know? Like,
yeah.
Who doesn't like to run good stuff?
Yeah, right. Now the most egregious card. So let's talk about Shelter from the Storm. Now, we have spoken on this show about, maybe we should look towards a Sink Below and Fate Foreseen ban sometime in the future, just to kind of, because the rate on those is still super good, right? It's super high. Not only did they double down on us, and they did it with a card that is arguably better rate than either of those. So Shelter from the Storm is a 0 for 4 generic defense reaction. So we're already starting off hot. Its text is, as an instant, you can discard this. The next 3 times you would be dealt damage this turn, prevent 1 of that damage. So it's also just randomly a way to prevent 3 rune chance, or 1 arcane off of 3 different spells out of wizard, or 3 different dagger attacks, or some other stupid bullshit. So we had this discussion this weekend where it was like, okay, so it doesn't really necessarily have to be better than Sink Below. It just has to provide more utility within a given metagame than Sink Below. So right now, if you think of, a metagame that has Go Wide Dagger decks and Aurora and Viscerai, it's pretty easy to argue that this is better utility.
I think it's better utility. And again, now that I've had more time to just kind of like digest everything from the weekend, what I really like this card for, I know there's a lot of people who are already like, they hate this card. There's a lot of people with, no. I mean, there are a lot of people that for whatever reason see this incredibly cool set that's a lot of fun to play in all of these new tools, and they are, choosing to be Doomer. And I'm not saying that their feelings are invalid. I just, I think it's weird when you've got like 90% positive to focus on the small negative so much, but I've seen a lot of 3 major complaints repeated over and over and over again. And this card is one of them, right? Again, as you said, we've talked about it in the past on this show, maybe Fate or Sink need some sort of adjustment because, a lot of people like to say, and I don't agree with this, mind you, but you see it a lot on Reddit or in other online spaces. They'll say like, hey, good generics are bad for the game because they mean that every deck starts with like the same 15 cards or whatever. And then you see a card like this and you're like, it's just 1 more, like what's the point? And to that I say, if you're starting with like the same 15 generics every time you build a deck, you're probably just deck building wrong, because I can't remember the last time I have done that. Are there certain ones that see use in a lot of decks? Absolutely. You're not, anytime that cards are usable by more than 1 class in this game, like you're not going to just see that limited, right? Like Codex is good in Ranger and Assassin, so of course they both play it, right? Like good cards get played. That's the nature of card games. Good cards get played. But what I think is interesting is there are 2 ways you could look at this, right? You could look at this as like, well, this is very clearly a power creep and it's a majestic and it's going to be another expensive staple and blah, blah, blah. But I look at this as, one, for this card in particular, this is actually a way that you can address Sink Below. I think it's actually going to be Fate Foreseen that is the one that gets hit. I think people will likely phase that out and keep sinking this. But one of the ways that you can phase things out is, it's not necessarily power creep. It's just like more choice. And now the next response to me saying that is you're going to say, well, it's not a choice because this card is just like clearly better than one or the other. But the reality is that's not the case.
No.
This card has a higher ceiling and it has more utility, but it also, in my opinion, has a much lower floor, specifically in Classic Constructed, because good opponents will try to bait this and then they might just end their turn so that you don't get the value, or they might do something where, you know, they mitigate it. And especially with this new set coming up, like, yeah, it's going to eat like Kodachis or whatever, but also like it ate Kodachis, right? And so if they can still get their relevant on hits or something through, it's fine. Or if it eats a Phoenix Flame, like, it's helpful, but it's not the end of the world. And honestly, if you can get somebody to use it for the 3 instead of the 4 and not get full value, well, now, like, all that you did was essentially like waste their blue block 3, as long as it doesn't stop something good, right? So this card, in my opinion, is going to be a skill tester. I think good players will be very good at utilizing it. It's still a good card. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't think it's like as wide of a gap as people think. But the other 2 complaints that I've seen a lot of are over the generic legendary boots, as well as the Command and Conquer reprint. So, you know, a lot of people say
Guardians don't deserve those boots.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I know that that's a misprint, because obviously Guardians are not allowed to have cool kicks. And then this set, they essentially got 2 sets of boots, right? They got our new arcane boots, and they got these defense reaction boots. But, you know, again, the argument against the boots are, you know, we shouldn't have good generic equipment in the game. Like, look at the problem Tunic caused or whatever. And again, not saying that I fully disagree with the sentiment, but even when I look at Tunic, again, everyone likes to say, well, you have to play it. Well, maybe it's just me, but I've played a lot of classes that don't run Tunic throughout the course of this game. And I did just fine. And even on the ones where I did run Tunic, like, I also did just fine. I think that having good generics is good, as long as there is still a reason to run other things in other scenarios. I do worry that these ones in particular feel strong right now, but they feel strong, I think, specifically because of the meta we're in. We're in a very go wide meta. Those boots are incredibly good against
turn meta.
Those are very good against pop-off turns. They're very good against these go-wide decks. We're also in a meta that just doesn't have ice. And, like, I look at that and I think, like, try activating that through, like, Channel Lake Frigid.
Ice. We have ice.
We don't have real ice.
No.
You know,
no one's getting deported?
Activating that through Channel Lake Frigid sort of thing. So, again, I'm not saying that there's not, like, some concern. I don't think it's a, like, raise all of the alarms concern. And the CNC thing just cracks me up, because, like, they could have just not reprinted it.
They could have.
Right? Like, I've seen a lot of people saying, like, this is such a slap in the face for them to do it this way. And it's like, yeah, but they could have also just not reprinted it. They could have reprinted it at Majestic to make it and still put it in the expansion slot, but then so they're in an interesting spot as well, because, like, they have never reprinted a card like that without doing something special for it. So, like, correct. I'm okay with this, right? Because we have the original Command and Conquer, and then when they reprinted it as a Fable, we got a new artwork, and we got the full extended art thing, and so now we're getting another new artwork and different versions of it. Some are extended art, some not. And it would have been, in my opinion, it would have felt really weird to give it a brand new art treatment, but then still slap it in the expansion slot, because it's not really expanding anything. I mean, it's in that traditional slot. Well, it is, but it's not like as a Majestic. Like, traditionally, those Majestic expansion slot things have been something like for your class to help you out or whatever. And this, it would have almost been like an acknowledgement of, we're reprinting just this one particular card, right? And there are other cards that, it's, you and I were talking about this before, right? There are other cards that you look at them and you're like, yeah, they've actually been reprinted less. Like, you and I were talking about how there's less E-strikes in the wild, but it still, costs less. So very clearly reprinting things isn't always the answer. It's also just about demand and price memory and whatever. But Command and Conquer has more versions of that card in circulation even before this reprint than, say, E-strike does. And it's, E-strikes are still half the cost. So I don't know. I see it like, look, I get it. We want cards to be affordable. I'm not saying that, I'm oblivious to that. Obviously, I want more people to play the game. I want it to be accessible. But for everyone to say, like, hey, I want you to reprint it, and them to do any sort of reprinting, and you to just be like, I am offended that you did this because it wasn't exactly what you wanted, just feels icky to me, right? Like, That's,
right.
in my opinion, like, it's valid to have like feedback, don't get me wrong, but that's also the sort of thing where, you know, if it was a different company filled with spiteful people, they might say like, well, then we just won't reprint it at all because you're clearly not happy. Now, I don't expect that to be the case because LSS has already shown us they have a plan. And again, like we've talked about, the lead time on these things is a long way away, right? Like this reprint was probably put into motion like a year and a half ago. So for them to be like, well, you're looking at the prices now and this feels like an insult. Well, the prices a year and a half ago were different. Like we had a completely different market. Like that was right when the Japanese player base was getting into things. We kind of didn't know. It was the first time we were seeing the big, like, you know, second wave player spike, expansion of the game. I don't know. It's just been frustrating. Like I know that the feelings are valid and I'm not trying to discount them, but it is very frustrating to me to see, and it's probably because time and time again on the show, you and I have said, like, if you just give them time, we've seen them do all of the things that we like have asked. Right. It might not be on the timeline you want, and I get it, but like we have big faith in LSS because like they keep doing what is good for the game.
Big trust the entire way. I'm going to move on to London because we got the promo stuff released for Pro Tour London and Calling London and the weekend and whatnot. So the Pro Tour competitor package is the playmat is Plague Hive, which is a great looking playmat. One Sink Below promo, and a pack of Jarl Vitradi sleeves. None of these things go together, really. But the other thing is they're doing the souvenir package again. This one is spicy because this gets you the New Art Command & Conquer playmat, New Art Command & Conquer sleeves, the Hunted deck box, which is gorgeous, 3 of the Sink Below promos, when we're going to talk about the art in a second, and then the Part the Mistveil archive pack box in Japanese. So it's like $311 USD, so reasonable. But I think that this Sink Below promo is perfect because it's literally tea and crumpets.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That's pretty great. I'm kind of a big fan of this. I think that this is kind of a, and I like the Pro Tour branding on the playmat as well for the Command & Conquer one. I do wish that was the playmat for competitors in the Pro Tour, but I get it. It's a lot easier to sell these souvenir packs if you know you have this in there instead of like Plague Hive. And all the Pro Tour playmats have been gems for the competitor playmats so far, so that also makes sense. Where are you at with this, Darick? How do you feel about them doing the souvenir package thing again?
I mean, I guess I kind of don't feel like one way or the other. I expected them to do it again because, let's be honest, like the Osaka one sold out lightning quick and there was clearly a demand for it. And, you know, whether you're, you know, a filthy, evil mega corporation, or even if you're just, you know, a business ran by some cool blokes, business is still business, right? And so if you see a bunch of demand for something, like, you're going to do it again. So I'm not surprised. I am personally less excited for this one, but it's not because I think that like the quality of the product is any different. It's more so just that it is the box that comes with it is still Part the Mistveil this time around. And I know it's like one set back because I think it was heavy hitters for the Osaka one as well when Part the Mistveil was technically the newest, but
I think so.
And so like I understand, and again, that's probably a printing thing, right? And a timing thing and a lead time thing. So like I get it. It's just Right now I feel like I'm getting less excited to open more Perth of Ismail because it looks like all 3 of those heroes will be fast-tracked to LL sooner rather than later. And that combined with the outstanding experience I just had playing with the Hunted means that, like, right in this moment right now, what I want is more of the Hunted. So that's what
understandable.
Other than that, like, the rest of it, it looks good, makes sense. I fully expected them to do another one after the big hit they were in Osaka. So, yeah.
No, I think it's great. Last little thing that we have to talk about. So Skirmish Season 11, scheduling went out to LGS's today. So as we're talking. And they have the prizes listed here for Skirmish Season. The extended arts are 12 for the participant promos are 12 pledge fealty and 12 what is it called? Pursuit. What is it? Relentless Pursuit. So 2 decent cards, probably see some play regardless. If marking is a big deal and fealty are a big deal, that happens. The play mats are Fang, Syndra, and Arachne Web of Deceit. So, Darick, there's an Arachne Web of Deceit playmat that's going to be randomly distributed to stores. Have fun. Your top 4 cold foils are Channel Lake Frigid. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
And then your winter cold foil is the English Ira Scarlet Revenger. So that art, the one that they gave away in Rainbow Foil.
And I do like that art. So
it's really good. That was my
problem with the Ira. Like, I liked both of the art.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I prefer the Weeb one, but yeah. So I think that this is a really good skirmish package. This will get people to go out and play, I'm pretty sure. It looks real good. Also, the Syndra playmat looks good. The Fang playmat looks fine. The Arachne playmat looks hot. So that one's going to probably be a bit more sought after, much to your chagrin, than, other ones. But are you going to have to chase one of these down? I guess I should have asked.
Maybe. I mean, obviously we'll have to wait and see. Maybe I'll be able to get a hold of one naturally, but if not, I don't know. I'll probably see if I can find somebody who's willing to trade for it or whatever. Yeah.
Well, we almost always have somebody, right? Yeah, do a couple listener questions.
Yeah, we should do that.
Because
I know we have a couple.
We do. We're going to save one of them because they kind of requested it for Josh, but we do have a couple otherwise. The first one is from El Dorte. El Dorte asks, what would you like more? Having a set that features one older hero to give them new life like heavy hitters or outsiders, or have something like Welcome to Wraith 2 that features the same heroes again or new versions of LL'd heroes? I don't think I like the same heroes again. That seems boring if you've already done, especially if you've if they did like a return to Wraith type of set with the original heroes. I think that if that is the case, it's going to be really good for the people who are newer. They didn't have a chance to draft Welcome to Wraith 1,000 times. But for people that did draft Welcome to Wraith 1,000 times, which I am in that boat, it's not as exciting necessarily. It can still be very good because I still will draft Welcome to WTR and enjoy myself. But it's not as it's not as exciting, right? Whereas if you put a older hero into a set to kind of give them that new juice alongside new heroes, you kind of get the best of both worlds. So I think that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah. So where I'm at is kind of it's a two-tiered answer. The first part is I think I would just prefer like one or two of the older heroes getting love at a time. And in many ways, I almost feel like we're kind of going to get a version of that with the Guardian like mastery packs. Because in many ways that feels like I'm sure all Guardians will get some love, but it really feels like if it's going to be Guardian specific, I think of like the non-talented ones. So I'm kind of hoping that we get like one or two more Bravo cards. I hope Betsy gets a lot of love, stuff like that, right? As far as like a whole set centered around like either older heroes or specifically like Living Legend ones coming back, I do think it would be really cool if they just did like a thematic set once where they were just like it's Legends Reborn, and in that set we get, you know, Dromai 2.0, Icelander 2.0, Chain 2.0, like all in the same go, right? It's literally like, hey, this is going to be both a highlight and a celebration of a bunch of heroes that were, you know, beloved, and we're just gonna, you know, instead of like bringing one back along with like two new ones or whatever, we'll just be like, look, this is 2.0 the set, right? This is Living Legend 2 Electric Boogaloo, whatever you want to call it.
Sure. All the Arya heroes redone. Please don't. Last question from Blaze Storm, valued member of the Patreon. For producer Greg, can we get a Lance Goodthrust supercut? Greg said he can handle this. So apparently we're going to be getting the Lance Goodthrust supercut.
Oh, well, I was just going to add to it.
Okay.
Lance Goodthrust.
Perfect. That will go in the supercut. And we have several supercuts that we need done, but that one's probably the easier. Yeah. Okay. Are you ready for this? And then just Lance. Yeah, like we can do this. We can make this happen. Thrust. Lance. Yeah, we can 100% get this to work. Just Jock Rock Lance Goodthrust. We can do this. I believe in us. I think that this is a real thing.
Yeah.
So anybody that feels like that we should do this, make sure that you incessantly hound Greg in our Discord until he makes it happen. I think that's very important in this case, because we need this supercut in our lives all of a sudden.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. Speaking of which, we should probably thank some patrons, shouldn't we?
Yes, we should do that too.
Let's do that. Let's thank our associate producers, Andy, Cindra, Jacob, and the Salty Sea Cat, and our executive producers on up. We have Blaze Storm, value member of the Patreon, Brandon, Diana the Green Cosplayer, Lance Goodthrust, you can add that one to the cut, Matt Tutokes, Micaiah, Paxanus, Sergeant Eastbjorn, Vintox18, appreciative listener, Chris, Philip, Rich, Sergeant Swanson, Matt, and the Jackal. If you're interested in becoming a member of our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes. There's some number of tiers. You pay for one of them, one of the paid tiers. You get into FAP After Dark, which I think we'll be trying to host one here soon. I may even try for next week before we leave for Memphis. But regardless, if we may talk about the information that we talked about at the beginning of the show during the After Dark, because then it's not recorded. And but that's the best place to kind of get at us in our sort of natural habitat. Like if you would have been with us in Prague, you would have seen exactly what a FAP After Dark looks like, live and in living color. So it got it got weird. But it's a fun time. We don't say anything scandalous or anything like that, but we are a little bit more free with topics and stuff like that, which is insane because of how free we are with topics here.
The best way to sum it up is you're more likely to hear one of the hosts tell their co-host that they want to punch them in the face.
I tell you that now, like on this show.
Yeah, but more. Like it's more often.
I guess that's probably true. I don't
or
think.
You'll
I definitely.
In an elevator. You'll ride in an elevator, and the only thing will just be deep sighs.
Yeah, that happens a lot whenever we're in the same town. It turns out, because Jesus Christ, I think I threatened you with violence less this time than I normally do.
That you remember.
Well, okay, 19 beers is a lot of beers. Just going to go ahead and put that out there. As is GoPro probably has exactly how many times I threatened you with violence. If you need to contact the show at all, you can always send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. You can find us on BlueSky. Just search Flesh and Pod. The best thing to do is to join the Discord. Links in the show notes. Don't have to be a member of the Patreon or anything. You can just join. And make sure when you do, you would select your role so that if you want to be a part of the Brews with Bravo, talk about booze, it's right there. Cooking with Reinar, the Pickle Posse, they're right there. Or if you really want to get in on some existential dread on the Kierkegaard's Corner, that's also there. There's also, the Patreon channel, which turns out a lot of shit gets talked in there too. That one's for patrons, though. Darick, where can they find you?
They can find me in our Discord, and you can find me in the Chuckles with Charmer channel.
There is
where I tell dad jokes.
There isn't one
I practice my stand-up routine.
You're tight 10.
Yeah. So that's the best place to find
me. Tight 5? Tight 5? Tight 10?
Like a 6.
Let me go ahead and make that channel really quick. So Chuckles with Charmer. Okay. That channel exists now. There you go. Tell your dad jokes all you want. Hold on. I got to mute this channel before I forget.
Hold on. I got to turn it back. This channel. Hey, look, Charmer is going to be talking in here often. Allow me to mute it quickly.
I needed to mute it before anybody did anything with it. If you need to find me personally, you can find me on BlueSky at Logan Peterson. Just search my name anywhere, really. That's what it is on Discord. It's where, if you want to interact with me on Twitter, I don't recommend it because I don't want to interact on Twitter. Oh, I didn't fucking leave the channel yet, you piece of shit. God damn it. Okay, hold on. I'm going to move over to a different channel. Now do your thing. Do your worst. I won't see it. Well, I mean, it's a nice little out. I am fading like a fucking flat top right now, though, because
I'm so proud of you for making it this far.
It's been.
I came home and I passed out. So
yeah. It was been 18 hours of travel to get back home, and then had some stuff at home, and then load up on the information and stuff that's out here to go do the show, which we did with no notes because I didn't even have the ability to do the notes. And my brain is in full on panic mode because work tomorrow is going to kill me. And so that's where I'm at, if anybody's wondering. But alas, not dead yet, hasn't killed me yet. So all things considered, I guess we'll see you all next week for episode 165 with the venerable Josh Czech'd. Until then, be well, take care of each other. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which leaves the door wide open for most things. And 165 in a row, I guess, is where we're going to go with this. Well, shit. Bye.